But what about you who are weary of well-doing in this world tonight? And I can tell you that as a pastor, I speak to those who are weary and who are exhausted because of their sufferings. What about those of you who, though you may never have uttered a syllable of such a thought to any other person in this world, you have despaired even of life itself? And maybe you've even considered that it might be better for you if you put an end to your misery by your own hand. But then you feel the guilt and the shame of even having such a thought. And you are hard-pressed, not as Paul was hard-pressed, but hard-pressed by thoughts that come not from your Father in heaven, but from the evil one. Is there any hope for me, you might ask? And the answer is that there is hope for every sinner who will call upon the Lord even in the midst of his anguish and his despair, and cry out to the Lord for the grace to say with Paul, to live is Christ, and to die is gain. If Christ is your life, you will see how the life that is in you is not just for you, but a life that is meant to be lived in the service of Christ and His church. And even for those outside of the church, your life has meaning and purpose only as you see it through that lens. And perhaps your despair is because you've forgotten this. So often the cure for depression and discouragement and despair is just to set my mind and my heart on the work of Christ rather than on my own internal distress, you see. Isn't that what Paul does here? He would rather live in this world and be of service to Christ and His church than to go on and be with Christ and to enjoy the glories of heaven for himself. Consider this when you are tempted, dear believer, to think that your life in this world is useless and pointless. Christ, who is your life, has not yet taken your life. And the reason is the same as it was for Paul the Apostle. There is still some work for you to do in this world. There is still something for you to do, someone for you to encourage or to comfort with the hope of the gospel. There is still some way for you to glorify Christ in the midst of your sufferings and your distress, even if it is to pray for someone else that you know is suffering in the same way.